Hi, my name is Josh Day, and this is a video for the Building Blocks Quilt Along. Today I'll be quilting stippling in a building block.
So we're working on a lot of different scales here, and a lot of different sizes. What do you think about this block just initially going into it, Josh?
Well, I'm very intimidated by the micro stippling down in the corner here.
You got your thread kind of wrapped around the foot a little bit. There we go. So you're a little intimidated by how tight that stitching is?
Yeah, and it'll be a fun ride when we get there. So we'll see.
Well, we're going to build up to it. So this right here is 1-inch stippling.
And it's just, you can see I went off the line there. I dropped the speed in anticipation for the tight corners. So
you're kind of fiddling with the speed adjustment now to try and find where it's going to be right for all of these different forms. And that's a good thing, is adjusting your speed for each type, because especially for this wider stippling, you're probably going to make faster movements, bigger movements with your hands, more of a movement with your arms and your shoulders. Even when we get to the tiny, dense micro stippling, that's going to be more of a finger movement, a movement within the the tiny kind of adjustment within your fingertips. So it is going to feel different, and maybe lowering your speed will help. But you certainly don't need to adjust that quite yet.
Nope. Yeah, that was definitely premature on my part.
But how does this feel right now?
Oh, this is easy.
This is easy?
Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, but...
Hey, it's stippling. It looks great to me. You took a little bit of time to watch those older videos that I've done on stippling. What was something that you took away from that might be helping you with this?
Just the importance of stopping and rotating.
Moving it around. Yeah, that's definitely an important thing. And one thing that you might want to try too is, have your hands in this arrangement, kind of press down with your fingertips and try and move it all in one pass without rotating. Sometimes, rotating a lot can feel helpful, but sometimes it can create actually more of an opportunity to stitch off.
Okay,
So
I will give that a shot.
So here you're leaving your hands in the same arrangement, and you're stitching down. How does that feel?
Very awkward. It does not feel good. I don't like it, so
Okay.
I'm not going to be doing that.
Okay. Fair is fair. I understand. When we have a big quilt on the machine, though, and this is something that comes, as you're moving beyond these blocks and into a bigger quilt, you're not going to be able to rotate as much. You're not going to be able to shift things around just on the fly. And figuring out how to deal with it, even when it's uncomfortable. If your machine is willing to stitch in a direction, then we need to be able to stitch in that direction, basically. But it is definitely something to work towards and build up to.
Well, one thing, I don't like having the fingers. For me, it helps it when my palm is laid flat on the block. That actually gives me more control than fingers.
Okay. Well, we're going to work up to that whenever we get down here. That was really kind of a tip just for the tiny micro stippling. But we're going to start shrinking it down. You're almost finished with this 1-inch scale stippling. And that is stippling that's just, it's on a really big scale. It's big and chunky. It's suitable for quilting all over a bed quilt. If you were just wanting to take a design and stitch it over the whole surface and not pay any attention to the piecing, any attention to the applique, then that would be a good scale to pick. Okay, so you haven't ditched yet, so why don't you go ahead and stitch up and stitch down to ditch that area, so that way it's nice and secure before we fill in that 1/2-inch stippling. So here's some 1/2-inch stippling, and it's definitely a different experience from that 1-inch stippling we started with. One thing I would suggest is maybe leaving your hands in one arrangement and trying to flow through this area. And let's just see how that goes. It's not always going to feel perfect.
I will leave it in my hands in this arrangement right now and see what happens.
Just see what happens. It doesn't have to be perfectly on the line. It doesn't have, it doesn't have to be perfect. The point is to start learning how to get comfortable with these movements. You just rotated.
I know. And I don't listen, because when I see something that's not working, I'm gonna change direction.
Okay, go for it. I think that's one of the lessons of being a teacher is both, you know, sharing instruction and what works for me, but also having the grace to say, well, this is what works for me, but it doesn't work for everybody, and I accept whatever you feel like you need to do in order to make this work for you. So at this point, I think we're going to speed up the video and just watch Josh flow through this area, and then we'll check out what it looks like whenever this space is finished. Okay, so we're into this little 1/4 inch area, and one thing that I'm kind of seeing is Josh's hands are really far out, especially for, you know, this 1/2 inch and 1 inch stippling. And one thing that I would say is going to definitely make it easier is to bring your hands a little closer. Now, do not stitch through your fingers. You know, you're not coming in like this. You're not getting your fingers underneath the foot. I definitely advise always having a foot on your machine so that way you know where that needle is going to be. But I definitely like lining up my index finger, and if you have the ability and there's nothing coming down in this area, to rub your index finger of your right hand against the edge of that foot, and that might help you pivot and manipulate the foot in order to stitch this densely. But let's get started and see how it goes. You're going to slow it down a little bit?
Yeah, this is definitely a time where it needs to be slow.
Yeah, because you're going to be moving it slower.
Let's try that.
Okay.
That is an interesting feeling, touching that thing.
Okay. Well, it's not moving, and there's nothing coming down near your finger, so you could even be closer to it than you are right now. And you might want to slow down your machine because those are very tiny stitches. What Josh is basically doing is putting a speed limit on the maximum speed of the machine. This is an okay thing. It's certainly, if you have the capability, it's wonderful. If you don't, just start trying to access those slower speeds in your foot pedal and get used to finding slow to medium speeds. They're there, I promise. And in all honesty, using the speed slider is kind of a cheat. But you can see how much control this has given Josh here.
And it's the best cheat invented in the last, probably. When did this come out? What, 20, 30 years ago?
Well, speed sliders have really become more common in the last 5 years or so, I'd say. But it's obviously something that can help. And, you know, he's kind of plodding through this, but at the same time, he is staying better on the line than in the other two sections of the block. So there's that for it. And with a small scale like this, sometimes that's what you got to do. Now, the one thing about it is, this isn't realistic on a bed quilt. If you wanted to stitch a section with 1/4 inch stippling and you stitched it this slowly, it would take literally forever. So finding that higher speed, and more than anything else, it's getting your hands to the point, oops, sorry, that was my fault. Getting your hands to the point where they are comfortable making this movement much more quickly. That's really the trick about it, is being able to kind of slide through the entire section very smoothly and very fluidly.
It's actually a little too slow. So I can speed it up a little bit.
Well, can you move your hands a little faster first?
Well, with that, I'd be afraid the stitching would be too far apart.
Really big stitches?
Yeah.
Okay. We can maybe adjust it just a little bit, and then you also need to, as you adjust the speed of your machine up, you need to adjust the movement of your hands needs to go faster.
Yes.
Okay. So get those hands moving. Definitely got to move a little faster than that even. That's better. That's about where you were at. Nope. Speed up again. That's the thing. It's that adjustment of up and down that you've got to get used to. And until you're ready to go there, you're going to kind of be fiddling with that. And I almost feel like you're kind of getting distracted by your speed slider a little bit and using it, relying on it almost too much.
That's a good speed right there.
You like that medium speed?
Mm-hmm. And one thing I've found is critical in this. This is, I'm gonna say it straight. This is a hard block. This is difficult. Don't get obsessed with the lines. Just use the lines more as a reference, as opposed to it has to be going over them exactly.
Exactly.
Because if that's your thinking with that, you're already screwed.
Well, do remember that I stitch these areas freehand, and I certainly think that that's the best way to do it, because no one expects you to stay on the line. Everyone has a different look to their stippling. Everyone has a different kind of signature when they stitch this, and that's really the better way of doing it. In fact, actually, one thing that we might want to consider is even flipping over the block rather than trying to stitch on these lines for the 1/8 inch section. Maybe flip over the block and just try and stitch it freehand instead.
Oh, that would be. I
think that would be less intimidating.
Yeah, I'll sign up for that. That sounds like fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we'll try and do it. Sometimes having the marked lines can actually be more intimidating and difficult than having no lines at all. So you really like that idea of not having any marked lines.
I do. I'm actually very excited to begin doing this, because doing on the marked lines was quite intimidating. And I plan to go kind of from a down to up.
Kind of up and down with the stippling, micro stippling. Okay, so this is micro stippling, and it's on the back of Josh's block. So let's see how this goes. And remember, use that index finger of your right hand against the foot, and that might make it a little easier to control. It's very tiny finger movements.
Watching Leah's earlier videos, one interesting thing she talked about is lobster claws.
Just that shape?
Or you can think of it as little Lego hands. Okay, you can see the up to down wasn't working very well, so I'm trying to change gears here. Let's see if it becomes more comfortable. See, I'm getting too big there.
No, that's fine. Consistency comes with time. It's not going to come instantaneously. And if this is the very first time you've ever stitched on a tiny scale, and this is for you, it's not going to be perfect. It's flat out, it's just not.
And as you can see, my stitching is not at the level. It's not. The scale isn't small enough.
Well, no, I'd say it's definitely getting there. And control over the machine and control over the quilt, moving under the needle. All of this comes with time and practice. But do you see how much bang for your buck you're getting with this? How many repetitions of that shape you're getting as you quilt through this area? I mean, you're getting 6 or 7 wiggly U's here, and you're repeating that multiple times. By the time that you get all the way over here, I promise you're going to see a big difference.
And let's go back to Leah's original idea, going up and down. Doing something new like this. This is the first time I've ever done micro stippling. I haven't practiced it. This is totally new. And yeah, you can see that line wasn't so good.
Well, you also just slowed down your speed. Your foot isn't putting as much speed into the machine. For that one, for whatever reason, you slow down the machine, so your stitches got a little bit bigger and maybe a little bit more jerky than what you liked. Speed control and movement of your hands, those are the two challenges when you're stitching on a small scale. They come with doing it a lot, with a lot of practice, but you do get a lot of repetition on a small scale that you wouldn't get on a big scale without using a lot of fabric. covering a lot of yardage.
And consistency too is key here. You want to try to be consistent.
And it's not going to be flat out, but you can certainly aim for it. So let's speed up the video and just see how Josh works through this area, and see how things transform as he works through and gets to the end. So that's it for stippling and our building block. So what did you think of this?
Well, honestly, the large, the medium, half medium ones I found to be pretty fun and educational. It really helped me get a hang of stippling. However, the micro stippling that Leah stuck in the corner, that was trolling. And let me define trolling for a second. Trolling, essentially, is online hazing.
No,
internet hazing.
It's not trolling. It was intended to give you a lot of bang for your buck, and also to just introduce that idea of dense stitching. Some people are so afraid of it and so intimidated by it they won't even try it. I wanted to sneak it in there just a little bit, just to give you a taste of it, and also that might be a goal that you have, to be able to stitch small and stitch densely. It was certainly a goal of mine earlier on. But it sounds like it's definitely not a goal for you.
No, it's not, but as I said before, it was trolling.
Mean, Leah being mean.
but Leah mentioned she had another filler, cat hairball filler. That would be one to absolutely begin on if you want to do dense, tiny fillers.
Yeah.
Not this one.
Well, work on it, have fun with it, enjoy exploring these multiple scales of stippling. And we'll meet you back here next week for our next blog, playing with multiple scales of grid lines.
So until next time, let's go quilt.